Hello, everyone. Welcome to our program, Consciousness in Evolution. We are live from our YouTube channel and Facebook page, Reaprendentia International. Consciousness in Evolution is a program from Reaprendentia International that enables access to information about parapsychic phenomena, bioenergies, projection of the consciousness, multiple lives, and so much more. In today's webinar, we have Jaclyn Cowen, who is joining us with the theme, the rebirth-death cycle and past lives. Intriguing, no? We would like to remind you to feel free to send in your questions. We'll try to answer them during the presentation. Any questions that aren't answered live will be posted in the comment section. And if you want to know more about the parapsychic phenomena, evolution of the consciousness, and the conscienciology, subscribe to our channel and follow us on social media, where we will keep you updated on future courses and free webinars. All links are below in the description. Thank you for joining us. Instructor Jaclyn Cowen is graduated in Urban Planning and the Master of Urban Design. Born in Sydney, Australia, and currently lives in Foz do Iguaçu since 2014. Volunteer of Conscienciology since 2007. Conscienciology teacher since 2009 and Penta practitioner since 2016. Co-author of the English-Portuguese Glossary of Essential Conscienciology Terms. Jaclyn, the word is yours.
Thank you, Claudia. And hello, everyone. For those who are there watching and listening to this webinar today, I'm very happy to be participating in this program and talking to you guys about this topic, which I like a lot, which is about this rebirth, death cycle and past lives. So I guess I'll just mention exactly what I'm going to be talking about in this talk. So I'm going to be talking about this rebirth, death cycle, which all consciousnesses, all humans and non-humans, I'll talk about this later, go through. I'm also going to be talking about the different phases of the cycle, so I'll be going into some detail with that. And also those ideas which are often associated with this particular topic. So I'll be looking at those ideas to see whether they hold merit or not. And finally, I will be looking at past life memories and how we can possibly obtain them and the benefits of having, remembering our past lives. So let's begin. The first thing I'd like to mention is the principle of disbelief. In all talks, in all classes, courses of conscientiology, this is like a statement or a principle which we always promote, which is this idea of don't believe in anything, not even what you are told here, experiment, have your own experiences. So this is about really not believing what I'm going to be talking to you about, really thinking whether it has any logic, whether you accept it, thinking, critically about the information, using your discernment, and of course, prioritizing the experience. So trying to have your own experiences in order to validate as true or not what I'm going to be talking about. Okay, so first of all, what is the rebirth-death cycle? So it's this idea of, as I mentioned, all consciousnesses, they go through this cycle of having been born into a physical life, what we call an intraphysical life, living their life, and then dying or going through what we call as desoma, deactivating the physical body, and then and we have one intraphysical life after another. Okay, so we see that we've had many past lives, and we will continue to have many future lives. And between each of these lives, we have a period where we're no longer in the physical dimension, in the physical body. And so we experience a period between lives, and then we come back again to have a new intraphysical, physical life, right? So we see that there is this cycle that is continuous. And just to show you this diagram here, you can see how we use these terms, right, in conscientiology. So resoma, the rebirth, right? Desoma, the death, and what is known as the intermissive period, the period in between lives, okay? And you see that there's a variety, even though this process is continuous, one life after the other. You can see that each life is different, and it falls within this continuous process of evolution, right? Moving forward. So often, for example, people will talk about this process of reincarnation, and in actual fact, it's something that's it's a term that has a slightly different meaning to the one we understand in conscientiology. Okay, so reincarnation, they don't talk about this period in between lives, and also they talk about the fact that you can, if you have a life which is not so pleasant, or you don't do such good things, you can actually degrade, you can go back in terms of your evolution. We don't see that as being the case. So we see that evolution is a constantly forward moving process, and although we may kind of do what's known as like a stagnation, we may stagnate for a period of time in our lives, ultimately we will constantly move forward in our evolution. And so then we have the intraphysical period at the top, and then we alternate with these extra physical periods or non-physical periods.
Can I interrupt you? Are you sharing your slides? Because they are not appearing for us.
Okay. So
maybe a technical problem.
Maybe. Okay, let's share again. One moment. There we go.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. Just one moment. I'm going to go back to the slide that I was talking about. Okay, so can you see the slide with the graph? And now we're going to move forward. So why do we need to go through?
Not yet, Jaclyn. Is
no?
In the first?
Okay. Well, anyways, I'm going to keep talking, and then it should show. But let me know if it doesn't show.
Yeah, so the audience said that it's great.
Excellent. So everyone should be seeing the slide, which talks about why do we need to go through it, or this cycle, right, of resoma, rebirth, desoma, dying. And I should mention that it's an opportunity to evolve ultimately. So there are things that we need to do while we're in having a physical life, right? Certain experiences we need to fulfill what's known as our life mission. In a previous webinar, one of the instructors talked about this, or what's known as an existential program. Things that we each conscious need to do in this intraphysical life that we can't do when we're not in this intraphysical life, and not having multiple lives one after the other. So going through a life, we make some mistakes, but then we have an opportunity to rectify and continue, right? And of course, evolution is a slow process. So it's not like we can change, and become like this very advanced evolved consciousness just in one life. There are some people who think that it's possible. Oh no, I'm done with, having future lives. Let's just get it all done with. No, we don't see that it's possible. Evolution is a slow process, but ultimately, over many, many lives, we are able to, for example, master our different bodies. We see that we have different vehicles, different bodies of manifestation. We have the physical body, which we're all aware of, but we also have the energetic body. We have the psychosoma. Later, I'm going to show you an image with that. Or the emotional body, which is the body we use to have an out-of-body experience. It's the body that we present when we die or deactivate the physical body, go through disoma. And we also have a mental body or mental soma. So each of these bodies.
Exactly. Sorry. Could you put the slides in the presentation mode?
For me, it's showing in presentation mode.
Yeah.
So sure.
Now it's appearing this. Yes. Okay. Maybe.
I'm going to share one more time.
So, you can continue.
Okay, let me try again. If not, we might have to go without the slides, but it's very nice to show the slides because it didactically explains the information. So let's try here one more time.
Yes, maybe it's something technical. To start raining in some parts, maybe.
Yeah. And how about now? Is it showing?
Yes, it's showing, but not in the presentation mode, but you can continue.
Okay, because it's showing for me in the full presentation mode, so I'm not sure what we could do at this point. But let's keep going. Okay, so this idea of evolving is also why we need to have lives, multiple lives, this continuous process of evolution that we have, is to also to come to this life to improve our relationship with others, right? We see that in this current life is, we've done many things in the past, had conflicts, done things against other people have done things against us. And in this life, we can be reborn and actually not remember anything of what happened in the past. And they can be our family members, they can be our close friends. And we can have this opportunity to develop these good relations with them and reconcile and for us to reflect, like this image is showing, for us to reflect on our behavior and see if we can do things a little bit different, a little bit better, so that we can, take this opportunity that we have of improving our relationships with others. So this repetition of lives gives us this opportunity of starting afresh, right? With each new life, we have a new life to make better relations with other people, and of course to assist others. As we see through this process of evolution, as we evolve more and more, we see the necessity, just like improving our relationships with others, to also to assist others. And we can see in this image here of the bottom right image of one person holding the hand and then lifting the other person up. So we see that there's consciousnesses of all many different evolutionary levels. And we all come together on this planet, and we can see now, even with the crisis, the conflicts that's happening in Ukraine and Russia, and many different situations that we go through, we can see that there is a difference in evolutionary levels between consciousnesses, and yet the healthier consciousnesses are in a position to be able to assist those less unhealthy or sicker, or we call more pathological consciousnesses. So and so it has this tendency to bring everyone up, right? Everyone's evolutionary level up, and we can do that while being born in the physical planet, which we have this limitation of how could I say, being in a physical body, of being sometimes close to people, being born in the same family with different consciousness of different evolutionary levels, and being on the same planet, right? Or being together and having this opportunity. Okay, some other points I'd like to mention. I think I've mentioned a few things here, but let's see if there's something that I didn't mention. This evolutionary process will continue, okay, for many, many, many lives still, until no longer needing to be reborn. I did mention that we have had many, many past lives as well, and we see that. This is not our first life, and really we are, how could I say, even though we don't remember, we have been around for a long time as a consciousness. And I guess one of the things is all consciousnesses go through this process as well. So, for example, some people have this idea that there's some evolved consciousnesses, like angels, that may not need to go through this process. They just remain in the extra physical dimension or non-physical dimension, and just, they don't need to be reborn. And from what we understand, all consciousnesses, at least if they're in the extra-physical dimension and up to a certain evolutionary point, all consciousness need to come back to have intraphysical lives to continue to evolve until there is a point when you no longer need to be reborn. But that is, for most of us, still a long way off.
Jaclyn?
Yes.
We have here a comment and a question from Eliane.
Yes. Okay, yes. Great.
I consider that we have, first of all, to reconcile with ourselves before anyone else. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree. I think it's like a two-way process. If we're able to reconcile with ourselves, we're able to understand others better as well, and reconcile with others. But I agree with Eliane, it starts with ourselves. It's a process of looking inwards to ourselves and looking to see what things we still need to improve. And in order to improve our relationship with others, sometimes we need to change ourselves. We need to renovate or recycle certain postures, certain behaviors, certain ideas that we have about the other person as well. So it's really, it is really about looking at ourselves. So I hope that kind of explains a little bit more, and it's following the same line of thought that Eliane made.
Yes, and we have another question here from Domingos.
Okay, says, great.
If all people were aware of our multi-existential cycle, their behavior would probably be very different from the current one.
Yes.
What do you think is most important for people to be aware of this?
Oh, what do you think? What aspect do you think is important to, or why, or? So that last part, for me, it wasn't so clear. I think it is very important. I can maybe, Claudia, do you want to just repeat that last bit just one more time?
Yes. What do you think is most important for people to be aware of this?
Okay. Yeah, so I agree. I think it's very important that over time, it's not, how could I say, I think some people are more open to this information than others. Of course, this is the world we're living in. People have different preoccupations. Some people are focused just on survival and meeting their, necessities, material necessities, and other people have different preoccupations. But I agree, at some point in this evolutionary process, the ideal is that, everyone has knowledge of this process, this multidimensional process, and And it would change, of course, once you have knowledge of this. It changes you because you change your priorities, you change your preoccupations. For example, like what you think as being the most important thing for your life. You come to this life to do what? And, you know, for example, you see that, yes, for me now, my priority is, you know, to work on my life mission, my existential program. Or for example, I think in terms of not, and it comes down to this idea of reconciliation and assistance. I think this would probably be one of the most important points for you to understand, understand and appreciate more the relationships that you have with others and not taking that for granted. And I think, be more in a position of assisting others rather than adding fuel to the fire, you know, and creating conflicts. And just having a more deeper sense of, you know, what we really need to come to this life to do. So I think our priorities would change for sure. And of course, relating it to this topic of past lives, right? For you to understand, you know, really, for example, no one comes to this life, how can I say, just by chance, or it's not the first time that we've interacted with people, right? We've had relations with people over many lives, and just really taking advantage of this current life to evolve, right, and to assist. Okay, so let's keep going. I hope I kind of answered the question in a roundabout way. And I guess, so I'm going to keep going. I think there's one more point here. This relationship with karma, I didn't mention because, like, for example, this idea of depending on what we do in this life, if we act in an ethical manner, if we respect others, consider others, even with our thoughts, we think good thoughts, positive thoughts, then this can have a positive repercussion on our own life and in the lives of other people. But if the opposite, then, you know, if we act against, then it's going to cause problems if maybe not the immediate moment, but in the near future or in the longer term. So we see it as not being like a punishment, which is kind of different to the reincarnation aspect, but more as an aspect of a cause and effect. And of course, I'm not going to go into detail with this. It's like a whole topic in itself, but just to mention it because it has a relationship with this concept of reincarnation and this evolutionary process, right? That everything that we do in our life has repercussions. And all consciousnesses are kind of in this kind of mechanism of helping the consciousness to evolve. Ultimately, it's all in order to help the consciousness to evolve, and we have, you know, lots of lives to get it right. But what can we do in this life to really take advantage and correct things now? Okay, so let's keep going. The phases of this cycle of resoma, desoma. So what happens during resoma? So ultimately, you come into this life as a baby, but there is a process, and a multidimensional process that happens at the same time. We see that us as human beings, we're just temporarily living on this planet, right, in our physical bodies and having this life. But actually, our true state is extra physical. And so when we move from this state to the, you know, we are reborn, we go through the resoma, we change dimensions, okay? So we enter from a non-physical, extra-physical dimension to the intraphysical dimension. And what we do is we actually obtain a new soma, a new physical body, which we didn't have before, and a new energosomal, energetic body. So you can see here in this image on the right, you can see what's known as the different bodies, which I mentioned, the 4 different bodies, together known as the holosoma. And so you can see they're a little bit adjacent, but in our physical body, it's all aligned, coincidence, right? And this is what happened. And even though we have this loss of lucidity over time, starting from the day that we are reborn, we start to acquire lucidity, right? More and more. But we never acquired the level of lucidity that we had before as an extra physical consciousness, or what's known as a spirit. So we live our life, and then at the end, we go through a process of desoma. So we deactivate our physical body, known as, also known as death, but we lose our physical body. So we discard our physical body and part of our energosoma, energetic body. And this is it's a shock for the consciousness, but it's a positive shock. We're changing dimensions. It's nothing more than just a change in dimensions. And then we enter the extra physical dimension, and we have the potential of recovering the lost lucidity that we had before. But of course, depending on the evolutionary level, some consciousness will obtain more lucidity or less lucidity. But ultimately, our temperament, who we are in essence, remains the same. So this idea of that there's a lot of ideas in terms of when we die, we're going to go to heaven. This is a religious conception, right? And we're going to be transformed into, this great being and live happy life ever after. No, so we see that it's a little different to this. We do, in terms of regaining lucidity, we do become a better version of ourselves if we're, able to do that, go through that process. But we still stay the same. Okay. So any, how could I say, fixed ideas we have or attachments we have, and conflicts and all these things, they stay the same, and we still need to resolve them and reflect on them and recycle. But there is the potential of, how could I say, because we no longer have this intraphysical life, and the concerns are different. We no longer have the concerns that we had before. We don't need to work anymore. We don't need to sleep. We don't need to eat. So all of a sudden we can, volitate. We have different concerns. And if we are lucid enough, we can take advantage of this. And for example, one of the things that can happen after going through dysoma is we can have a past life review where we see images of all our whole life that we just lived through, and we see the things that we did correctly, and we do it's like a panorama of visual images or moving scenes, and we get to see what we did right or what we did wrong, and it's like a balance of our life basically. And it's interesting because there's a movie, Defending Your Life. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this movie. It's a very good movie which shows some aspect of what might happen after you go through dysoma. And the people there, the guy, he dies, he has an accident, and he goes to this place, a community, an extra-physical community, and it's all about they're evaluating his life to see if he was able to, how could I say, get to evaluate his life, to see if he was good or not, or what he did incorrectly, and he's able to see that, right? And we have something that's known as the parapsychoteca. which exists, and it's something that a place that you can go to, and you can actually watch and see not just like images of your past life, the life that you just lived, which is the past life review, but you can actually, it shows you scenes of your past lives, and show, like, for example, the things that you did wrong or right in past lives, right? So it's very interesting. So, and they show that scene in Defending Your Life about this parapsychoteca, and and they see how the one guy, how he made the same mistake in various lives, right? Of course, the context changed, even the gender changed, civilization changed, but he remained the same in terms of that specific aspect. Yeah, he made the same mistake. So it's interesting. I guess in terms of, there's another movie that I'd like to mention, which is very interesting in showing, for example, the one idea that happens when we die. And for those consciousness who are not so evolved, then, or how could I say, who were very conditioned in their previous intraphysical life, they're not even aware that they died. And so it's interesting because they think that they're still living their physical or intraphysical existence, right? They continue living their life, but now they're in a different dimension, and they can do other things. They have all this potential, and yet they're fixed, and they have these attachments to their previous physical life. So it's something, unfortunately, a lot of consciousnesses still have this. And the movie The Sixth Sense, this shows very well what happens to consciousnesses when they don't realize that they died. And yeah, it's very interesting, this process of for some consciousnesses, they able to eventually recover that lucidity, that click, right, in their head that makes them realize that they did die. So this movie, The Sixth Sense, very good in relation to that. And then we have what's known as the period in between lives, and this is known as the intermissive period. Okay, so I was mentioning a few things like, so we spend time, a period of time in the extra-physical dimension before we resumate, or we have a new intraphysical life. And this time can be really great in terms of like taking benefit of this period to learn things, and especially in relation to your next upcoming life. And there is what's known as the intermissive course. And if we are able to, increase our lucidity enough and detach from our last physical existence, we may have this opportunity to partake in this course. And we could say it's kind of like a school or a university, in where you have a teacher and you have students taking classes on various evolutionary topics. And one of them, for example, would be this sort of topic that I'm teaching you about, this idea of having multiple lives and this existential seriality. So this is one of the topics that the students, the extra-physical students, would be learning. And so I guess when you, I guess it's an opportunity for the consciousnesses there to really think about taking those specific classes that will help them in their next life, their next upcoming life. So each consciousness is different, and they would have to work on different aspects. So maybe, they would have things in common, classes in common. Other classes would be specific to that particular consciousness, in order to really not repeat the same mistakes, and to, in the next life, to be able to fulfill their existential program and to accelerate their evolution. And I guess I should mention that what we do here at Herprendencia, and other conscientiology groups is to really bring those ideas from the intermissive period. And so we don't even have to wait to decimate, to go to an intermissive course to be able to access these ideas. We can already access these ideas, a lot of them in our intraphysical life through, taking part and listening and listening to these sorts of ideas in conscientiology. Okay. If there's any questions, guys, please let me know. So how can we, as coming back to that principle of disbelief that I spoke about right at the beginning, how can we validate Siriexis as true? Okay, to ourselves, more important than anything else. We need to see, okay, does it have logic to me? And, to apply this principle of disbelief, we need to use our discernment. We need to, rationally to think about it deeply, see if it holds logic to us, use what's called evolutionary intelligence. And so I'm not going to go deep into this. This is also another interesting topic, but that intelligence that a lot of us are born with in this life, that is really about prioritizing what's most important in terms of evolution, and reflecting on things with that in mind. Also, if we have what's known as out-of-body experiences, known as astral projection, some people know it in that way, or lucid projections. So if we can have a out-of-body experience, for example, we can interact, we can at least validate this idea of multiple dimensions as being true, and we can even have an experience out of our body where we're able to recollect ideas or memories of our past life. And that's related to, and that can be past lives, like intraphysical lives, but also the lives in between lives. So the related to the intermissive course or the intermissive period, things like that. So, and then related to that is the past life memories, or retrocognitions, the technical name we use for past life memories. So this is really important. If we're able to have a past life memory, a recollection of, as a consciousness, knowing that this isn't the only life that we've had. We've had previous life where we were, we may have a different appearance, we may be in a different culture, religion, all these aspects are different, and yet we realize that is us. That is us. It's our consciousness. We know it. When we have that experience, and we're lucid about it, we can confirm to us. We can't maybe confirm to anyone else because they didn't have that experience. But to us who had that experience, it's so concrete, it's so real, and becomes a reality, right? But the fact that, these retrocognitions do exist.
Jaclyn.
Yes.
We have a question here from Eliane.
Okay, great.
So she wants to know if have you accessed a previous life in which influenced you in this life? Can you comment about that?
Great. Let me see. Well, I'm researching about, it's a past life, actually the past life, a life just before this one. And I've had some experiences, retrocognitive experiences, 2 now. And I was about to mention, and this relates to what Eliane is going to say, that usually it's important to have more than one experience about a particular life to give more validation to that experience as being true, right? So, I mean, they say as a rule of thumb, 10 experiences to validate as true. I've had 2 experiences related to this past life, 10 years apart. And it's related to, how could I say, an experience where I was in Russia and I migrated from Russia to the United States. And for me, and I've had two experiences related to that, actually different details, different facets of that one experience. So new information that came. And so, yeah, it was very interesting because it's related to my group. So I was able to understand when I researched about this specific group, which was a large group that kind of, it's a Jewish group, and I'm Jewish in this life. So that connection makes sense as well. The fact that I was a Jew in a past life. Not to say that I was a Jew in all my past lives, but this often we will repeat for a number of lives some similar aspects. But how could I say, it helps me to understand myself in relation to the group. So the group had certain common experiences, in terms of the migration, the experience they had in Russia when, there was a lot of persecution that happened during that time, and then going to the United States and having this sense of freedom. And a lot of these ideas, it resonates in me, like it makes sense. Of course, I'm not going to say like it's an absolute truth. Yes, I 100% had that past life, but for me, it's becoming a high probability, and through not just through my retrocognitions, but through my research as well, like reading books and all of that. And it's helped me, to identify certain traits that I have that I need to improve, and also to assume certain strengths that I developed within these groups.
Yes, we have also a comment here that I think is related to what you're talking about. Say, if our political leaders were aware of that, it would be much better for humanity. I see most of them are very worried with their egos.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Being popular, pleasing others, or being very focused on what they can gain,
the power,
the power,
to get
the
more
greed.
power, money.
Exactly.
That's it. Thank you.
And we're seeing it today, right? How would having even a slight notion of this greater reality, multidimensional reality, how that might change a person's perspective, the decisions that a person makes, and knowing that how many lives did I repeat this? How many more lives do I want to continue to repeat this? And this is an important concept that we talk about, this idea of self-mimicry. And this is one thing that past lives, having these retrocognitions and understanding more about our past lives, with certain aspects, we can see that, for example, I had a retrocognitive an experience where I was shown that an aspect of myself that I still manifested in this life, way back in ancient Greece, I still had it. And and I'm in this life, now becoming aware of it. I'm like, no, I can't continue with this. I need to, renovate myself. I don't want to continue. It's just a repetition. It's just over and over again.
There is no evolution, no? We are repeating.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's very important for people to become more aware.
Yes, a comment. Very interesting. This retrocognitive experience of searching for the most valuable thing one can have, freedom. Yes.
Yes, freedom. Exactly. And this is the thing, knowing about all this information, it does give you over time a certain level of freedom, because for example, there's these concepts that people have about life being kind of deterministic. And, you know, and yes, there is a certain level of determinism in terms of we come to this life, and because we're the same consciousness, we have the tendency to repeat the same things. And it's us, you know, and also the groups that we're part of. We come, you know, to the same groups, you know, because like attracts like. And so there's these forces at play in our evolution. But at the same time, the consciousness has free will and can make different decisions and can reflect about whether they want to continue in the same line, in this predictable way again, right? And so once we become more aware and we start to apply these principles and we start to really want to change ourselves and evolve, then it does give us a certain level of freedom. Our freedom does continue to grow. It's almost like a paradox, but we understand the process more, and we're able to enter into that flow, that, you know, the evolutionary flow. So, but let's continue. So let's focus a little bit more on these past life memories. I've already mentioned, but what happens specifically? So when we're having a past life memory, we are accessing memories within ourselves, within our consciousness, inside what's known as the hollow memory. Okay, it's like a storehouse of all the memories, you know, from our entire evolutionary process, and they're all stored there, but we're not able to access them. You know, we come to this new life and we forget everything, right? And most people may not even remember any past lives, right? Although it's possible, you know, if we want to have past life memories, retrocognitions, we can through effort, through applying techniques. There's lots of different techniques available. For example, there is what's known as a retrocognitarium. It's when you like recreate the environment in terms of a specific life that you may think you have led in the past. For example, I think that I may have had a past life in China. So in a room, you decorate the room in the style of how it would be in the past, with the specific style of, in terms of in pictures, you may put up a picture of, you know, those ancient Chinese drawings, the calligraphy. You may play music even of, you know, ancient Chinese folklore music, or whatever specific period, right, that you want to evoke to try and have that retrocognition. And so what you do is you relax, just like in the picture, the man is seated. You can sit in a chair or on a bed. Relax your body, close your eyes, and just try to, with that sole purpose, that relax as much as possible, of trying to recollect, right? And you're aided with, you know, all the stimulus of that, the retrocognitarium that you created, right? So this is just one technique, and so there's many other techniques as well. And this is an ability that everyone can have. Yes, sure, there are some people who are more easily able to have it, but even if you've never had it before, it's there. The memories are there within yourself. You just have to be able to access them. But I guess the question is, why don't we remember our past lives? And we see that just by having, you know, entering the physical existence into this physical body, this dense, you know, body, it has this tendency to restrict ourselves, right? Restrict all our parapsychic abilities, and specifically as well our memories of past lives. You have another body that's, you know, limiting our access to our hollow memory, which is, within the mental soma, okay, the mental body. And then another thing is there's a reason why we may not access our or remember our past lives. And it's kind of like a safeguard mechanism to help us forget some of the bad things we may have done in the past or the conflicts. We see that now, today, we are the best version of ourselves, understanding the logic of this continuous process of evolution, right? And that we're always moving forward. Today, we are the best version of ourselves. So, but in the past, all of us, no exceptions, at some point in our trajectories, we had conflicts, we suffered traumas, we did, unspeakable things to other people, and they did unspeakable things to us, right? And so we come to this new life like afresh, not remembering anything, almost like a blank slate. And it helps us just to start anew with people, develop relationships, and forget about, what happened in the past and start anew. So this is one of it's a mechanism we understand to explain why we don't remember our past lives. And another thing, is related to that, to not become overwhelmed with the traumas of the past. Even today, for example, people, if they have a trauma, how much do they suffer, right? People suffer a lot, like post, the PSD, right? Where you suffer, I'm not sure if that's the correct term, but you suffer with the trauma after the experience, people who are prisoners of war, or and so how much, even in this one physical life, do we still, we don't do so well. And imagine if we combine that with all the traumas that we experienced in past lives. So this is to not become overwhelmed, and to start afresh. This idea of not remembering our past lives, but we can have healthy recollections of our past lives if we try to have a retrocognition, and there's a process, there's a way of remembering. But of course, the idea is that we want to, over time, with maturity, we want to remember all our past lives over time, right? And this helps us a lot in terms of our own evolution, to reconcile aspects of ourselves more, to reconcile with others, and to ultimately evolve. Claudia, was there a question?
No question. There is a comment, good comment from Domingos. He said, prejudice do not make sense in the face of countless past lives in which we have gone through different experiences, places, etc.
That's very well put. Thank you, Domingos. Yes, it's an important point. I think the fact is, all of us, we've had many past lives in many different continents, countries, cultures, ethnicities, religions, genders. We've had so many experiences. And so if we really did understand who we were, and all the people that we interacted with from all these different groups, then our prejudices would fall. We wouldn't have so many prejudices. How can we, if we remember who we were? So it does help us to become less prejudiced, less discriminative against different groups, less sectarian or patriotic, right? Just being in favor of our own group or our own nation, or, and for us to, for example, regardless of the fact that people speak different languages or have different cultures, how much can we see ourselves, having a part of ourselves with those groups? And one thing that can help us to connect more, even if we don't have experiences, because this is the ideal, to have remember many of our past lives over time, and but how could I say, even without remembering, there's some aspects that can help us to give us indicators that we had past lives in these different groups. And one of them is our affinities. So if we have a strong affinity with a specific culture or group or ethnicity, this can be an indication that we had a past life there, right? We see here that it is nothing by chance. The people, the friends that we had maybe in our childhood, that, you know, that we interact with people. We had a best friend. For example, I had a best friend that was from China. I had lots of very good friends from China, Korea. And for me, it just makes sense. And I did have some experiences related to China. And I traveled to China. And all of these indicators, right, helped me to give more plausibility to this idea that I may have had a past life there, or more than one past life, right? And so yeah.
Jaclyn, there is also a question from Liane. She says, do you think that using hypnosis for accessing past memories is safe?
Okay. Yeah, so hypnosis, this like hypnotic regression, this is one way that people access past lives. I guess we don't see it as the ideal, just because when you're with another person, there's more variables that can interfere in the process of remembering like a clean past life, a past life which is without interference. So, for example, when you're with the other person can subtly interfere or influence the experience. Another aspect is you can actually have a recollection of the person you're with, a past life of that person. There's many, different variables that can influence. Yes, it can happen. You can have a past life, not ruling that out. But we see that the ideal is that it's better if you're on your own and you try to apply the technique by yourself without, minimal interference around you, like being isolated, and try to. And not only that, another thing is that the other person, if the other person may tell you, what you did in a past life, and that can be problematic. It's, to rely on someone else to give you that information, because again, there could be lots of influences in that. And I've had that experience where a family member of mine was given information about me and it didn't happen. It didn't come true. And so it's sometimes the wishes, the desires of the person as well can influence the information. As I said, the ideal is to try and have that experience. And there's so many different techniques that you can use, like I mentioned before. So,
okay.
Yes. So we have.
Yes. So it seems our time is up.
Okay.
So do you have any other consideration? Any other thing you would like to tell us?
Yeah, I think just to wrap it up, I think I mentioned some benefits, right, of having retrocognitions, but there's one idea that I would like to mention, just to who we were in the past as well as who we are today. We of course we're changing, we're in this process of evolution, but to really we can learn so much from ourselves, to the good stuff and also the not good stuff. So we can learn from the not such good stuff, and we can assume those strengths that we've already developed and talents that we developed in past lives, and for us to integrate. The more lives that we're able to remember, the more that we're able to integrate those lives into ourselves and become a better version of ourselves, right? Becoming more aware, lucid about who we are, really who we are. And that's why I put the question mark here with this face, to understand more deeply as a multi-dimensional being, multi-existential being, who we are.
Okay, thank you, Jaclyn. We have some
You're welcome.
comments here. Thank you very much for sharing this information with us. From Eliane, Renata, thank you, congrats. So, thank you so much, Jaclyn, for your talk. I'm sure these ideas will help us further comprehend our existence and expand our knowledge about ourselves. Okay, and that's all we have for today. We hope it was enlightening and informative. And if you have any questions, please feel free to add them here in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer them. And join us on March 20th when we will have Regson Alves and Adriana Rocha talking about an introduction to the concept of cosmoethics. So, what is the difference between ethics and morals, and how do they relate to cosmoethics? And what cosmoethics has to do with you? So, all links are below in the description. And if you want to know more, follow us on social media and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us today. Happy evolutionary journey. Thank you.
Thank you.